deals don't just appear, you earn them by doing the reps. Most people fail because of lack of consistency. I want you to have 3 meaningful conversations with storage owners every single day. And I want you to have ideally 2 to 3 more meaningful conversations with what I would consider key people. That could be a broker, that could be a lender, that could be a banker, that could be a wholesaler, that could be somebody that you're sharing, your buy box with, what you're looking for, something that is going to advance you and get you closer to your goal. Part of those meaningful conversations are not just new outreach, but it's follow-ups. So much of this business and so much of my real estate career over the last 20 years or so has been about most of my deals come from the follow-ups. All right, my friends, we are back with episode 3 here with Dan Wenzel. And if you have not been following on this journey early on so far, I cannot tell you how important it is that after this episode, go back, listen to episode 1, listen to episode 2, because in episode 1, I think what we did was lay the emotional groundwork, right? We talked about Dan's story. We talked about his journey, what he's done that wasn't working, what was working. And we really we figured out why Dan chose storage and what are some of the things he'd been doing that were working, not working. And then in episode 2, we got some clarity. We started to really hone in to figure out what was Dan's buy box, what type of deal is he looking for? Is it value add, the size of the facility, what kind of market? And then we really talked about his freedom number, right? And Dan put himself out there and said, hey, I am going to close on a storage facility by November 21st, 2025. And he identified his freedom number. So now we're going from his story and we're going from the emotional groundwork that we laid and then we jumped to clarity. And now we're going to start getting real tactical, okay? Because the truth of the matter is that deals don't just appear, you earn them by doing the reps, right? And most people fail because of lack of consistency. Most people fail because they don't have clarity, which was what we talked about in the last episode. And then they don't have a plan. They don't have a roadmap. So I think I'm going to call this particular episode the Daily Storage Playbook, because now's when we're going to start getting real tactical so that Dan knows exactly what he needs to be doing on a daily, weekly basis. And I want you to follow along, because if you are somebody who desires to get the benefits from this awesome asset class from storage, and whether that's cash flow or you want to build long-term wealth and ultimately you want to achieve financial freedom, time freedom, then that's great. But how are you going to do that? What are the things that you need to do every single morning when you wake up? What are the things that you consistently need to track that put you in a position to close your first storage deal? Dan knows this because we've talked about it, but the inspiration behind calling our coaching community Storage Wins is that you have to get clarity about the end desired goal that you want. And then you have to get clear on the micro actions that you need to execute on every single day. And when you stack those small wins, then they put you in a position to achieve that big win, which in Dan's case and in probably many of your cases is buying your very first storage facility. So Dan, with that, brother, how are you, man? How have things been since the last episode?
Things have been going well. I've been putting one foot in front of the other. Finally got a couple more offers out the door.
I love it.
And yeah, just trying to take small steps.
Okay, awesome. Look, one thing that I want to share with you, Dan, and we just talked about it before we started recording, right? Whenever I'm going to tackle the day, right, I always like to set an intention for that day. What is the intention? In other words, if at the end of the day, you were able to accomplish X, what is that? So set an intention for the week, set an intention for your day, and make sure that you're coming from a place of having as much energy as possible. Because you and I've known you for a while, right? So I could tell when we hopped on, you're like, man, I'm ready to go, but I could sense you maybe a little bit low on energy. And so, Tony Robbins teaches us that motion creates emotion. So whether you're calling a storage owner or you're looking at a deal or you're hopping on a Zoom or a call or a meeting with a lender, a potential partner, Make sure that you're communicating with confidence. Make sure that you have energy. And a simple way to do that, guys, as a reset is do 10, 20, 30 jumping jacks. Do 10, 20, 30 push-ups and get the blood pumping, get the emotion going. Right now, I'm recording this podcast, Dan. I don't know if you know, I'm standing, right? So whatever I do calls that are important, not always, but oftentimes I like to stand. I have a standing desk. And I like to stand because my chest is out, shoulders high. I'm projecting with my voice. I'm communicating with confidence. And I'm excited because this is something that we get to do, not something we have to do. And I think the mindset and the energy that you have going into something can often dictate how that day goes. Right. And by the way, I'm speaking to myself as much as I'm speaking to you and everybody else following along here, because believe me, brother, there are days that I wake up that I don't feel like getting after it. But one thing I've learned is that you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you're committed to. And only people that are unsuccessful people are the ones that go by their feelings. Right? Successful people are the ones that follow through when they're committed, even though they may not, quote unquote, feel like doing it. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. Yeah,
All right.
that's great.
Any thoughts or reflections there? Are you ready to dive into it?
I'm just writing down that quote. I like that one a lot. You don't
Okay.
get in life what you want, you get what you're committed to.
100%, man. 100%.
Daily reminder.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, fantastic. So now let's dive into some live coaching here. Okay. Dan, what I want to do, brother, is I want to define an action plan for you, right? And something that others can follow along that are following your journey can take this action plan, apply it to their storage business, or maybe they can tweak and modify it in a way that serves and works for them. But you've heard me share this in our Storage Wins community. At no point should you wake up and wonder, what do I need to do today? Right? When you wake up in the morning, you should be crystal clear. You should have so much clarity about what that day looks like because you've taken the time, energy to plan your success the day before, right? People don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And failing to plan is ensuring that you're not going to be as efficient as you could be, that you're not going to squeeze the juice out of that orange. So one thing I encourage you to do is at the end of the week, whether it's Friday evening or Saturday morning, before the family's up and before you start getting into that, is reflect back on the previous week and ask yourself what worked, what didn't work, what modifications, changes, tweaks, adjustments do I need to make so that this week is even more productive? Because my belief is that progress equals happiness. You may not go under contract on your first storage facility this coming week or this week. And you can't even control necessarily if you go under contract or if you buy a deal. But what you can control are the daily activities, what I like to call the daily non-negotiables. I have this, you've seen this before. I had this little wooden thing that was given to me, and it's the 5 daily commitments. These are the things that I commit to on a daily basis. The first one is connecting with God. The second one is daily sweat, right? Because our health, if we don't have our health, what do you have? If you don't have a strong foundation in faith, in my opinion, you're lost. And so I want you to come up with your daily non-negotiables specifically for your storage business. Okay. So before I share with you what I believe should be included in your daily non-negotiables, I want to kick it over to you because oftentimes coaching is about asking the right questions, and it's less about me talking and it's more about me extracting the wisdom and the answers that are already inside of you. This is a bit of a hybrid, obviously, because others are following along in your journey, and we're documenting this on the podcast, on the Storage Wins podcast here. But what do you believe should be your 3 to 5 daily non-negotiables as it relates to your storage business? So we're not talking about exercise, and we're not talking about prayer or family or anything like that. That's the precursor. That all has to happen, before we even tackle business. When it comes to storage business, what would you say if I had to give you, hey, if you could only do these 3 things, to move forward, gain progress and momentum towards your goal of owning your first storage facility by November 21st, 2025. And obviously, when people are listening to us, that date has since passed, but they're coming along the journey to see if we were able to, if you succeeded, if I succeeded in helping you accomplish that goal. So what are the three things in your mind that you think have to happen on a daily basis, done consistently, to help you accomplish that goal?
Calling owners,
Okay.
underwriting deals.
Okay. What else?
Maybe not daily, but weekly. As I've been trying to make more offers, at least one offer a week, I'd say probably making offers, but that's not a daily non-negotiable, I wouldn't think, because
Yeah.
that would be a lot of offers to get out the door.
That wouldn't be a bad thing, but yeah, no, I hear you. Okay.
I have some questions about that too, but I'll let you see where you're gonna go with that.
Well, definitely write that question down. Hold on to it because I wanna carve out some time here for some Q&A, because likely questions that you have are questions that others may have that are maybe a little bit, whether they're getting started or they're in the journey. So I definitely want to hear your questions. So look, I think you're on the right track. As I think about, if I had to strip it down and I had to think about what would drive success. If you took everything away from me, but you left me with my knowledge, maybe you left me with my cell phone or internet access, right? If you took everything away from me and I was going to commit to buying my very first storage deal, rewind the clock 5 years for me, what would I do to get there? Well, immediately what comes to mind is connection, conversation, right? So I think of those two C's. There has to be connection and conversation with people in order for this to happen. Now, that could be with storage owners, that could be with storage brokers, that could be with people that are out there finding deals, right? But there has to be some type of connection. I like to call them, as you know, meaningful conversations. What are the meaningful conversations that you can have? If again, if you took everything away from me, I would say, okay, well, I'm going to focus on acquisitions. I'm going to focus on getting really, really good at finding deals, because I know if I can find the deal and I can control the deal, then everything else is secondary, right? Versus if I don't have a deal, but let's say I have money, okay, well, I still got to go find somebody who has a deal. That could be a broker. That could be a lot of different people. But if I had to just focus on one thing, if I was getting started, I would say, hey, I'm going to get really, really good at finding deals. And in order to find deals, you're going to need to have meaningful conversations with people, whether it's brokers, storage owners. So you're on the right path when you say having conversations. And I wrote down, you said calling owners. So the question is, how much time do you need to block out every single day that no matter what happens? And by the way, let me define to me what a daily non-negotiable is. A daily non-negotiable means it happens no matter how you feel. It happens no matter what the weather is outside. It happens whether you lose internet connection. Like, no matter what, it happens. If it doesn't happen, something happened to you. Right? Like, that's the mindset you need to have. Before your head hits the pillow at night, you checked off that daily non-negotiable box. And if for some reason you mess up, you recalibrate, you hit the reset button, and you get after it the next day. Don't let the one ice cream on a Saturday night turn into a bad breakfast, a bad lunch, a bad dinner on Sunday, which then turns into a bad Monday, and then it's a week, and then it's a month, and then it compounds, and then you've gained 20, 30 pounds, and you don't look the way you want to look, right? Might be a little bit of a crazy analogy and example, but you know how I am, right? So, by the way, Dan, people don't even realize some of the crazy analogies they're going to hear on this podcast. But don't let one mistake compound and stack over time, right? If you mess up and you fall down, hey, what went wrong? What can I learn from this? What can I improve moving forward? Let's hit the reset button and get after it the next day or the next opportunity. Because you're going to trip, you're going to fall, you're going to stumble. I'm going to trip, I'm going to fall, I'm going to stumble. We're human. We learn from it, we recalibrate, and we get after it. Okay? So I believe in order for you to accomplish the goal of owning your first storage facility by November 21st, 2025, is you need to have meaningful conversations with storage owners. You need to have meaningful conversations with storage brokers, meaningful conversations with, let's just call them quote unquote key people. Bankers, lenders, storage wholesalers, people within the Storage Wins community. You've seen how fruitful that's been for others, where they can find deals within our community, where they can get funding from other members within our community. So surrounding yourself with the right people, and you're already in the right environment, where if you just focus and you have the intentionality where I'm going to connect with people and I'm going to have meaningful conversations, that's going to be a big part of this equation. I'm going to pause there before I go on to the second one. What are your thoughts on adopting that as a daily non-negotiable? Is that I am going to commit to I'm going to commit to having X number of meaningful conversations every single day.
Yeah, that's to the point of the question I was thinking of asking you. So, for example, on Friday last week, my focus was I have 2 deals I want to make offers for by the end of the day, so I can start this week with 4 offers behind me for the month.
Mm-hmm.
And my focus was making sure I get those 2 offers out the door. And that took up a sizable chunk of my day. I did not have a chance to make 3 to 5 meaningful conversations happen on Friday. So, kind of to your point, how much flexibility to provide yourself. Do you prioritize things that as your daily goals might shift?
Yeah, look, I think it's important to have structure around your day, but your schedule has to work for you and serve you. You don't serve at the mercy of your schedule. If your schedule doesn't give you some bandwidth and some flexibility, then I would argue then you're a slave to your schedule. Now, I want to be crystal clear, man. There's times to roll up our sleeves, grab the broom, and sweep the floors. Like sometimes we're in a season when we're building something from the ground up, like you are with your storage business, that we make it happen, no matter what. So we would have to dissect your day on Friday and even go a little further back into Thursday to figure out what could you have done. Number one, why did it take you so long to get 2 offers out the door? Right? What was the bottleneck in that process? Where was the friction in you? Was it because you had to analyze and underwrite the deals to even figure out what the offer was? Was it the fact that you didn't have your letter of intent template, you couldn't find it? Was it, family stuff got in the way and you didn't, or I shouldn't say got in the way, but family stuff was happening, which was a priority, and then it was late in the day. Like Monday morning, quarterback the situation. You heard me talk about that, right? In the NFL, they play games, let's just say on Sunday. Well, Monday morning, the quarterbacks are in the room looking at the game film. What went right? Why did I throw that interception? What was happening with this play? Like, same thing here in your business. So if it took up a sizable chunk of your day to get 2 offers out, what could you have done the day before to give you more bandwidth? Because getting offers out, that shouldn't take hours and hours and hours. So I guess that would be a question for you. What happened on Friday that it took a sizable chunk of your day in order to get 2 offers out, which then got in the way of you having those meaningful conversations? Before you answer the question, here's the good news. It's not like you were working on something that doesn't really move the needle forward. You were still working on something that is very meaningful. It's going to be one of your weekly non-negotiables, which is sending offers. So you still made progress and momentum, even though it might not feel like it. The question is, my belief is we live in an and world, not either or. So how do you have the meaningful conversations on a daily basis and get out a certain number of offers every single week? So back to my original question. Talk to me about Friday. What did the day look like? How was it structured? And where was the friction and the bottleneck in the process of getting offers out?
Underwrote both deals on Friday, as well as getting the offers out. And
By the way, when you say underwrote for somebody that doesn't know what that means, essentially you analyzed the deal. You figured out.
then,
Yeah. Okay.
plugged in the unit mix, the rates, did a rough market analysis to see the competitors' rates and get a sense of how much I could increase the rates of the subject facilities to see how much value I could add.
Yeah. And we'll, by the way, in upcoming episodes, we'll get into all that. We'll get into like, how do you break these deals down? How do you look at them? How do you run the numbers? We'll definitely be talking about that. But for now, it sounds like you started that process on Friday.
Yeah, for each of these two, I did the bulk of it for each of them on Friday, and I guess I'm not as efficient at it as I'd like to be, and it really took up the day. I did a few family errands in the morning, but so that took up some of the time too.
How much time would you say it took you? Did you spend on analyzing / underwriting the deal? And then from the time that you started that process to the time that you hit sent on your email and you got those 2 letters of intent out, how long was that whole process from start to finish for you?
Probably 4 to 5 hours.
Okay. Okay. 4 to 5. Here's a question for you. What, if anything, could have been done? What was some of the prep work, the pre-work that you or somebody else could have done for you to look at the deal, put together an LOI, and get it out the door as quickly and efficiently as possible while still maintaining the confidence that you feel good about the offer you got sent out? Because the idea here, as you know, Dan, is not just to get offers out. Anybody with a pulse can just send a bunch of offers, but it's making sure that you're sending an offer that you can stand behind, that you feel good about, that if the owner accepted, you'd be in a position to move forward with due diligence and execute on the deal.
Sorry, Alex, can you repeat what that question was?
Yeah, no problem. So what's some of the prep work that could have been done, right? If I gave you a magic wand and I said, hey, how do you shorten that from 4 to 5 hours to 1 hour to get 2 offers out?
I don't know how to shorten that. I guess that's an area I could become more efficient.
If you did know how to shorten it, what would that look like?
Having somebody to analyze the deal for me.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So write that down. So if we're gonna throw wet spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks, and we're in brainstorming, like let's come up with solutions to help you reduce the amount of time that it's taking you to analyze and underwrite these deals and get offers out. Give me 3 potential solutions. You already gave me 1. Give me 2 more. So one is having somebody on your team, or maybe it's somebody in the Storage Wins community, somebody that can look at these deals, do a lot of the heavy lifting so that you can come in and back cleanup. Okay, so that's one potential solution. Yeah. By the way, I'm not even saying that's what you should do, but let's just brainstorm some solutions right now. Because do you believe that every challenge, every problem has a solution? Somebody's been through that and has figured it out.
I would say so.
Okay.
Or more complex things have been figured out.
1,000,000%. Yeah, storage isn't complicated.
ChatGPT exists.
We had that conversation not that long ago, right? Like you're stuck and it's like, okay, whenever somebody comes to me with a problem or a challenge, especially when it's a team member I work with, and I think I've shared this with you, I've asked them, I said, hey, don't ever come to me with just a problem. I want a solution. So inevitably challenges are going to happen, but I want to know that you've thought through potential solutions. So, hey, here's the challenge. Here are 2, 3 potential solutions. And by the way, here's what I think we should do and why. And in most cases, I'm going to say run with it. So we're going to kind of flip the script a little bit here, but like, what else are some potential solutions to give you more bandwidth and more time to be able to complete your daily non-negotiables and still analyze deals, get offers out, etc. Don't overthink it.
Reduce the time it takes to analyze a deal. Practice enough to become really efficient at it.
Okay, that certainly makes sense to me. So some of this is the fact that maybe you just need more reps, more repetitions, more at bats, right? You started hosting 3 weeks ago in our Storage Wins community. Like we have our weekly group coaching calls, but then in addition to that, you put yourself out there and you said, hey guys, every week for an hour, I'm going to be analyzing deals. Whoever wants to hop on Zoom, let's kind of mastermind together on deal analysis, right? You've been doing that. I encourage you to continue to do that because that's giving you those extra repetitions in addition to all the other benefits we've talked about, right? The fact that you're building relationships with people, the fact that you're contributing and adding value. Not only does that feel great, but that has the opportunity to potentially open up some doors for you. So I want everybody listening to really jot that down as a takeaway, is that you get better by doing something, by actually doing it. So you can read about underwriting, you can listen to us speak about it, but until you actually like step into the arena, sharpen the pencil, so to speak, and actually start looking at deals, that's how you're going to get better. That's why one of the things I always encourage when you get involved in this business is commit to analyze or underwrite 1 to 2 deals every single day for 30 days. If you do that consistently, you are going to feel so much more confident at the end of that month because you've looked at potentially 60 deals. And you might get stuck and you might still have a lot of questions, and that's perfectly okay. But you get better at something by doing it, not just by reading about it, hearing about it, thinking about it, but by talking to others and actually sharpening the pencil and doing it. So my belief, Dan, is that most people, including myself, we have inefficiencies in our day and in our week. There's time spent on things that don't progress us towards our goals. For some, that could be email. For others, that could be scrolling on Instagram or Facebook, social media. For others, it's Netflix, right? Like, so do you feel like there's any inefficiencies in your day? Are there any time suckers, time wasters that you've identified or that you have some sort of awareness about?
I have a nice chunk of the day to focus on self-storage. I just don't think I'm as efficient at each of the processes for making calls and underwriting deals and
That's all right.
and coming up with offers. I think that was a big chunk of my time was if I'm going to put 3 different scenarios on an offer, making sure each one of those scenarios produces a return scenario that I'm good with. So it's kind of like analyzing each deal 3 times to come up with a bank financed offer and 2 different seller financed offers to make sure I like all of those scenarios.
And I love where your head is at, because when I send offers, I always like giving them 2, 3 options, right? Hey, here's the highest price I can pay, but it's going to come with some great seller finance terms on my end. It could be a hybrid. It could be an all cash offer, like giving the seller more than one option to work with you, I think is a great approach, right? And look, and part of this, Dan, is like, yeah, can we get sharper around the edges in terms of like the way that your workflow is set up, the way that your schedule? Yeah, 100%. We can find some efficiencies there. And I think a lot of this is going to come just by doing more repetitions and getting sharper and sharper and sharper with the process, right? You join a gym. Let's say you can run a certain amount before you pass out, or you can lift a certain amount of weight. Stay going to the gym, and 3-6 months later, you're probably lifting heavier weight. You're probably running further distances without gassing out. Kind of the same thing here. So I want to tie this and loop this back around to where we started, which was daily non-negotiables. I want you to commit to have a minimum. And by the way, we don't work on minimums. That's just like, the minimum is just, hey, no matter what happens, I'm at least getting this done. I want you to have 3 meaningful conversations with storage owners every single day. And I want you to have ideally 2 to 3 more meaningful conversations with what I would consider key people. That could be a broker, that could be a lender, that could be a banker, that could be a wholesaler, that could be somebody that you're sharing, your buy box with, what you're looking for, something that is going to advance you and get you closer to your goal. So if you spent 2 hours a day and those 2 hours were productively having meaningful conversations, and you do that consistently every single day, those are revenue generating activities. Those are results producing actions. Now, in order to simplify this process for you, I want you to know who you're going to contact the day before. So plan it out. Like, don't just get in front of your computer, fire up your laptop and be like, okay, like I want you to cut the fat. And what I mean by that is I don't want you spending too much trying to get to a point where then you're going to begin the race, right? Like if you want to run a marathon, you don't just show up to like the Boston Marathon or the New York City Marathon on the day of and you're like, hey, sign me up. Let's go run this thing. Like, no, you've trained, you've planned, you may have hired a coach, you were doing the prep work. Same thing here. Have the mentality where you're going to do the prep work the day before for the following day. So hey, these are the storage owners I'm going to reach out to. And you have a healthy list of them because we can't control if they pick up the phone or not. And if you leave a voicemail or you send a text message, that's not a meaningful conversation. To me, a meaningful conversation is somebody who you actually get into a meaty conversation with about their business, about the storage facility. They would consider an offer, and you get to have a conversation with them and connect with them. You talk to a wholesaler and you share with them what you're looking for. You talk to a broker and they share a deal with you and you have a conversation with them of why it doesn't work. Right? Use your judgment. Don't overthink this, but it should be pretty clear to you like, hey, I just had a meaningful conversation with somebody. Okay?
I know what you mean.
Okay, perfect. And look, and part of those meaningful conversations are not just new outreach, but it's follow-ups. So much of this business and so much of like my real estate career over the last 20 years or so has been about like most of my deals come from the follow-ups. There's a smaller percentage of them that come on the first touch point, right? There's statistics out there in sales how it requires 7, 11, X number of touch points before somebody does business with you. Right. I think I recently heard this weekend somebody has to consume 7 hours of your content before they, ascend down kind of your funnel. Might not be the same translation in the storage business, but have meaningful conversations. The more of those you can stack, the further along you're ascending that potential storage owner. So that if and when they're ready to sell at some point, you've entered the conversation already happening inside their minds. And that comes from consistent follow-up.
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay, before we move on, I'm going to encourage you to time block. I would say 2 hours a day. If you could time block 2 hours a day to focus on meaningful conversations, in fact, if you put it in your calendar, maybe it's, you're on the West Coast, right? So maybe it's 9 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
9 to 11, I think, is a good sweet spot for you to catch the people on the East Coast, in the Midwest. 9 to 11, 2 hours of meaningful conversations. Maybe you give yourself a 5 to 10 minute break in the middle there if you feel you need it. I would encourage you to stand up when you're having these conversations. We talked last week on a separate call about, like, one way to get more efficient is, if you're doing outbound cold calls, is to use a dialer, right? Use a multi-line dialer. Like Mojo Sells is one. There's Call Tools. There's other multi-line dialers out there where essentially you can upload a spreadsheet and it will only connect you with the people that pick up the phone. Now, here's a disclaimer for everybody listening. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm not giving legal or financial advice. Check with the laws. Make sure that whenever you operate, you do things above board. Dot your I's, cross your T's, protect yourself. You don't want to be calling people that are on the do not call list, even though the do not call list, as they say, is dead. But dot your I's, cross your T's. All right. Make sure that you're doing things legally. You don't want to find yourself in any type of hot water. So then that could be one way to get more efficient, right? So are you good with that? Can you commit to 2 hours of meaningful conversations every single day, Monday through Friday?
I'll do it.
Okay, done. I'm holding you accountable to that, by the way.
Yep.
And for the sake of the podcast, I'm not going to get into what the consequence is if you don't do it, because I know you'll follow through. Okay.
I'll follow through. It won't be needed.
Okay. All right. What else could you adopt as a daily non-negotiable that will give you meaningful progress towards your goal? What else would you have to do? So you have meaningful conversations. What else? This one should be easy for you. Look at deals. Analyze deals every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day. I want you to minimum 1, ideally 2 to 3. And 3 might sound like a lot. You'll eventually get to the point where you can do back of the napkin analysis, which we'll talk about in an upcoming episode. How do you look at a deal with some basic information? And if we were playing Monopoly, you would pass go and collect the $200, i.e., you would go deeper into that deal versus, no, I'm not going to pass go and collect the $200 because, this doesn't make sense. Maybe it's, I don't want to be in this certain market. Maybe it's, the seller is just very unrealistic. And even in those cases, Dan, I would argue that it's worth making a soft offer. It's worth getting on the phone and throwing a ballpark out there and say, hey, look, Mr. Seller, I want to be respectful of your time. I'm a serious buyer. I can perform. I have the means to be able to close. I just don't believe I can get anywhere close to your ask. Here's why. Educate, right? I would likely be in this range. Insert wide ballpark range of a number that would work for you. But I'm guessing there's no way that would work for you, would it? Right? That's one way to approach that. But I'm guessing there's no way. Notice how I kind of went negative there. There's no way you could make that work. Could you? Question mark. Bite your tongue, be quiet, say nothing else. So those are soft offers you can make where you're just kind of like, you're putting your finger in the water to see is it hot or cold. Many times they will come back and they'll open themselves up. Oh no, I would never accept that. I would have to be here. Boom. Now you at least establish like where their mind's at. Because you know this, man. A lot of times storage owners just don't want to give you a number.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So and you can get to the point, Dan, where you look at a deal and just based on the size, based on how much revenue it's generating, based on a certain assumption of an operating expense number, you can calculate a net operating income number. And again, for those of you who aren't tracking along, we will get there in due time, I promise. And you can say, hey, look, I think this facility right now, this business is probably worth X. Now, you might not know that you can raise you can generate more X amount of more revenue to get to go from here to here. But you can pretty much, with their revenue number, you can pretty much determine, hey, this is ballpark what it's worth today. Okay. So I want you to commit to analyze and underwrite 1 to 2 deals. If you can focus on 2 deals a day, you're just going to move that further along. Could you do 2 deals a day with a minimum of 1?
If it has to be, I don't know that I'd have that many off-market deals to look at. So
Is there anything about off-market?
just go find listed deals and check them out.
100%. Focus on the off-market ones, but yeah, if you run out of off-market deals, jump on Crexy.
Yeah.
Right. Look at the facilities of brokers that you've communicated with and analyze their deals. The value in this is not just in eventually coming up with an offer, but the value is in going through the reps so that you build confidence and you get sharper looking at deals and understanding what makes a deal, what's not a deal, what could make this a deal. Like
You say,
go ahead.
when you say look at a deal, you mean fully analyze it or just quickly look at it? Does it look like?
I'd like for you to fully analyze it 1 deal a day.
Yeah.
I'd like for you to fully analyze 1 deal a day because it may take you more time now. In fact, I know it will. In 30, 60 days from now, it's not going to take you as long.
I feel like I can go through just by looking at what's there with the existing facility. If it's just getting the information off of an offering memorandum, I mean, I can plug in the unit mix and their existing rates and look at the competitors' rates and come up with my own rough expenses. Pretty quickly, it's just really turning that into like, okay, where does this really make sense for my offer to be? That takes the most time. Like I can get the info in there and get a pretty good sense of if it looks like it's an attractive or could be an attractive deal at a realistic price. I mean, anything could be a deal if you get it for way below its value, but putting those aside, just trying to like realistically say this is like,
Yeah, I got you.
after you look at it, after you look at enough, you get a sense of more quickly of what looks like it's attractive to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll get there. I'll help you get sharper there, but right now I'd like a commitment.
Okay.
First off, do you believe that if you were to underwrite 1 deal a day, right? Could you spend an hour a day underwriting deals? Does that seem like a reasonable amount of time to spend looking at deals? An hour a day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hour's good.
Done. So you got 2 hours of meaningful conversations. You got 1 hour of underwriting and analyzing deals. Okay. So those are 2 daily non-negotiables. And these, remember, we've established minimums, 3 to 5 minimum meaningful conversations, 1 like baseline minimum deal that you're underwriting. What else are there any other daily non-negotiables that you feel would help you advance here?
I'm not sure what that would be.
Okay. A couple things. We're going to transition to weekly commitments in a second. And these are 2 really, really good daily non-negotiables for your storage business. But there's a couple things. We talked about keeping your focus on acquisitions at this stage. One thing, but you're in a position where you don't think you have access to capital. Would you say that's true or no? Would you challenge me and say, no, I now have come to understand and believe that I do have access to capital?
Yeah, I believe I do.
Okay. Because not too long ago, we had a conversation and you're like, hey,
Mhm.
I need to find a deal. And essentially, like, I don't have any money to contribute to a deal. And then I asked you, I was like, well, do you have any access to capital? And you said no. But I think you were filtering that question through the lens of like, do you have your personal money that you can put into a deal?
Yeah, I've built a good network of people in the self-storage industry who are looking to get into deals. I haven't asked them specifically, what is a deal to you? But I know that a good number of people are interested. If I find a deal, I can bring it to them and say, hey, is this attractive to you? Um, but I do need to hone in on that more to
Okay. So
find out what people are looking for.
let's tie this back to the 5 meaningful conversations a day, right? Um, for everybody that's following along in your journey, and you've heard me talk about this, but the way that I like to simplify somebody's journey in the storage business is in 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 is essentially like you're coming in super green, newbie, brand new. You may or may not know anything about storage, and everything that has to happen for you to go under contract on your first facility. We're talking about some of the things that need to happen on a daily, weekly basis now. But think of when you start to getting your first deal under contract as phase 1. Most of the time we're spending 70, 80, 90% of our time focused on the revenue generating activities in phase 1. In other words, when we come into storage, we're not talking about the operations of a storage business. That doesn't yet matter at this stage for somebody who's brand new. Phase 2 is deal structuring, where to get the money, how to fund it, going through the due diligence process and everything that entails. And we're going to talk about that in more detail on an upcoming episode. That's phase 2 all the way up through closing. And then phase 3 is now managing, owning, operating for cash flow, increasing the net operating income of the business, the overall value. That's phase 3. I want all of your time and energy focused on phase 1. The only thing from phase 2 that I would say should be done simultaneously is planting seeds with potential lenders, bankers, and potential partners. In other words, dig your well before you're thirsty. The time to go out and find the money for a deal is not when you get the deal. Now, I also do believe that if you get a really, really good deal, that there is no shortage of capital that is chasing those opportunities, and you don't want to put yourself under the gun from a time perspective and feel like you're scrambling to go find the money. So right now, you don't currently have a deal that you're working on, correct? Now is the time to dig your well. Don't wait until you've walked 20 miles in the hot Arizona desert, and then now it's like, I need a bottle of water. Like, no, before you go walking, like, pack the cooler. And the way that you do that is by having conversations with people. And to your point, and I give you credit that you recognized it, is ask people where they're at. What's a deal look like to them? What are their goals, right? Are they looking to passively invest? What kind of returns are they looking for? And don't assume that just because you wouldn't do something and invest money for a certain return, others wouldn't. Look, I had a conversation with somebody today who I consider to be a sharp individual, a sharp guy. He's done very, very well for himself. He's built a portfolio of free and clear assets, and he does very, very well for himself. And he's having a hard time finding good deals today. And he is sitting on a bunch of cash. He is lending money at 6% interest. And this is not somebody who doesn't understand. Now, he, for whatever reason, he hasn't identified other opportunities that he understands and is comfortable with to earn more. But he recently started lending money at 6% because he was earning 3-4%, in a high yield savings account, and He understands the asset. Maybe it's opening up other doors and opportunities to work, but he was lending money now in some cases at 6% when he typically lends money at 10 to 12%. But for a variety of reasons, he chose not to go that route based on whether it's the operator, whether it's the asset, whether it's the deal that he feels comfortable with. So just because you wouldn't do something doesn't mean others wouldn't. And the only way that you can have an understanding of that is to ask them, have conversations with people. So all that being said, Dan, what if we did this? Let's add some specificity here as we start to wind down episode 3 here. If you're doing 5 meaningful conversations a day, what if we focused on 3 storage owners, 1 broker, 1 potential banker, lender, and or partner?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So imagine this, take a step back. 30 days from now, okay? That's 20 working days for simple math, right? Let's just use a 4-week month, right? 4 times 5, that's 20 working days. If you can squeeze in some time on Saturday, great. Let's just say 20 working days. In those 20 days, right? What's 20 times 5? 100. You've had 100 meaningful conversations. You've had 60 meaningful conversations with storage owners in a 20-day period. You've had 20 meaningful conversations with storage brokers. That's 60 storage owners. And some of those might be some follow-ups, and maybe it's not 60 unique storage owners, but it's 60 meaningful conversations. It's 20 meaningful conversations with storage brokers and 20 meaningful conversations with a potential lender, banker, potential equity partner. And that's just 1 month worth of work. What kind of activity do you think could come out of 100 meaningful conversations in a 30-day period over 20 working days? If you're listening to the podcast and you're not watching this, Dan is smiling and smirking because he already knows the answer.
Yeah, I don't see how it wouldn't at least.
You know what the challenge is?
Yeah.
You know what the challenge is? People want the feeling of crossing the finish line as the ribbon like rips through their chest, but they don't want to put the work to get to the starting blocks. And then when the gun goes off, they don't want to sprint. They don't want to do the hard work. People want the feeling of success, the overnight success, like, oh, that person's made it, but they have no idea the blood, sweat, and tears and time they put in. You're not that person. And my suspicion is many people that are following along this journey aren't those people either. We're willing to put the time and energy in to reap the reward. And the cool thing about storage, man, the amazing thing about this business is that it doesn't take very many of these for it to have a very significant impact on your life and give you the kind of life you want. So it's worth it. Dude, 100 meaningful conversations within a 30-day period is totally doable, especially if you just chunk it down. And forget about the 100 meaningful conversations. Just focus on what's in front of you today. 5. 5 is your number. And by the way, there's going to be some days where you're on a roll and you might crank out 6, 7, 8 meaningful conversations. And continue to focus when you accomplish that. That's icing on the cake. That's the cherry on top. Continue to focus on 5 because there might be a day that you stumble. But at the end of it, you're committed to having these 5 meaningful conversations every day. 3 with storage owners, 1 with a broker, 1 with a lender or potential partner. Somebody that could contribute to a deal from a financial perspective. And I want you to take good notes on these conversations. Not to the point where it's taking you a whole lot of time to, because I want you actively listening and engaged in these conversations. Not so much focused on writing notes, but man, all those meaningful connections, those meaningful conversations, that's going to move the needle forward so that when you find the right deal and you pick up the phone, it's not a cold conversation. People know you've been putting in the work. You know what they're looking for. You can send, in my case, when I found my first deal, I needed $350,000 to get into my first deal, which I didn't have. Dude, 2 text messages and 1 or 2 conversations. And that's what it took to secure the money I needed. Now, this wasn't a cold text message or conversation. It's not like somebody that didn't know me, but I dug my well before I was thirsty. I had numerous conversations with that person leading up to that point. That's why it sounds sexy and glamorous to say I secured 350 grand with 2 text messages and a phone call. Well, that's not the full truth. The full truth is that I was digging my well before I was thirsty. I had already had several conversations with this person about what I was looking for, my efforts, what was a deal to them, what were their goals. And this just happened to align with what worked for them.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, last daily non-negotiable, and then I'm going to just quickly analyze some weekly commitments, is I want you to write down your goal every day, read it out loud, and visualize the outcome. And I realize that this might sound like up in the clouds, a little woo, a little secret-ish. I believe that there's power in getting clarity about what you want, writing it down, putting it out there, and then followed up by the work. Notice what I didn't say. I didn't just say, hey, write down your goal, visualize it, and stop right there. No, you got to follow with action and execution. And that should take you no more than a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I would write the goal as if it already happened. Not, I want to buy a storage facility by November 20. Not even, I will own a storage facility by November, which is good, but I closed on my first storage facility. Okay? So we've identified 3 daily non-negotiables. I would encourage you, the goal, write it down at the end of the day. See it, feel it, visualize it. Let that go into your subconscious. Go to sleep. In the morning, we've talked about already pre-planning your day. You know exactly who you're going to be reaching out to. We talked about 5 meaningful conversations, 3 with storage owners, 2 with brokers. I'm sorry, 1 with broker, 1 with a potential funding partner, lender, etc. And then we talked about underwriting at least 1 deal a day. Weekly commitments. Weekly commitments. I want you to get out 1 to 2 offers a week minimum. 1 to 2 offers a week is not going to be difficult at all when you're having the amount of meaningful conversations you're having. It really isn't. And to your point, if you run out of being able to make offers on off-market deals, call brokers. Call brokers. There's plenty of deals on Crexy and LoopNet. Okay? Weekly commitment is to attend our Storage Wins coaching call every week. Right? And make sure that you're connecting with others in the community. You know the quality of people we have in our community. You know that there's money in that community. You know there's people that are marketing for deals, have access to deals. Just because you lack a certain resource or skill set doesn't mean you can't tap into it by connecting with others in the Storage Wins community. You've seen it happen with others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then here's the last thing. I want you to track your efforts, track your results. What you measure expands. What you track grows. Inside the Storage Wins school community, you already have the access to the tracker, or you can use whatever one you feel comfortable with. But track your efforts. Hey, I had my 5 meaningful conversations today. Hey, I underwrote a deal. Hey, I sent X number of offers this week. And then I would encourage you on Saturday mornings, ideally before the family's up and before the day's activities begins, or at some point that feels good for you, carve out 15 to 30 minutes just to reflect. And Monday morning quarterback, how'd the week go? What went well? Where did I fall or stumble? What were some of the challenges? What could I do different moving forward? Right? Who do I need to connect with that can help me in my journey? not necessarily always asking what. Right? Where do I need more clarity? What questions do I need to come on the Storage Wins coaching community call and ask who within the community has been down this path that can help? And we just one step in front of the other, man. One foot in front of the other, I should say, taking one step each day. That progress is gonna build momentum. That momentum is gonna move you forward until the point where you connect on a deal, man. It's not if, it's when. You have to believe that. You have to know that. And be mindful of the inefficiencies in your day. You know, we've talked about this offline, but I like working in sprints, not marathons. And if I'm being honest and transparent with everybody, I don't always work in sprints, even though that's how, you know, today's a day as an example where it's been a little bit of a marathon day where I've been on back to back, and I need to do a better job of making sure I get with my assistant to make sure that there's some breathing room and bandwidth. So working in a sprint could be working 50 minutes straight, focused on one specific task, and then taking a 10-minute break and then getting back after it. And then after 2 rounds of that, maybe you take a little bit of a longer break, 15 to 30 minutes, and then boom, you circle it back around. You can get more done working in sprints than most people can get done working in marathons. But the key is to be locked in, focused on revenue generating activities, results producing task. Notice how we didn't talk about a website, an LLC, researching a particular market or manually copy pasting and building your list. Like, that's all stuff that I'm not saying that's not important. I'm saying that's not what's going to get you closer to doing a deal.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Next call. We're going to have you do a lot more of the talking.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the 3 daily non-negotiables and the weekly commitments that we've just gone through?
One of them being a conversation with a broker every day.
Mhm.
Would that always be finding a broker deal online that looks has traits that I'm looking for and calling them to just learn about it?
Ideally. Yeah. Ideally.
Okay.
Ideally.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I say ideally because yes, that would be preferable. However, if you can't find something online that just doesn't maybe it's not the market you want to be in, maybe it doesn't fit, it might not work out on that deal, but it's still a worthwhile endeavor to build a relationship with that broker. Okay. And by the way, Dan, that could be calling the broker and say, hey, look, I saw this particular deal that you have listed on Crexy that doesn't fit kind of what I'm looking for. Always give feedback because of XYZ. Do you have anything else I might be able to look at? Here's what a deal looks like to me. Here's my buy box. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So what is the one metric we can track each week that shows if you're on pace to hit this goal? Like, what are the things that you can report each week that you know when done consistently, it's going to put you on pace to hit the goal?
Number of outbound dials.
Okay. I love that. Why? Because you might find that it could take you on one day 30 outbound dials to have 3 meaningful conversations with sellers. Maybe it takes you 52. Maybe you get lucky and it takes you 11. You don't know. You can't control meaningful conversations. You can control outbound dials.
That's the one you were looking for?
No, I wasn't looking for anyone in particular. More than anything, I wanted to see what your head was at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meaningful conversations. I don't want you spending 20 minutes trying to find who to contact. Have a list of people. Why don't you create your top 100? Why don't you create 100 people, a list of 100 people that you know have the ability to fund your future storage deal, or you believe have access to capital or could potentially, right? That could be a really good place to start. People that you want to build a meaningful relationship with.
So I have a list of like that. People I've met along the way who have I've gathered from my interactions with them would be open to partnering on a deal, being a capital partner.
Okay, good.
Just randomly call one out of the blue each day.
You're
Text
overthinking
them
it.
and say,
You're overthinking it.
okay.
I'm going to call you out. Yeah. I mean, 100%. What's wrong with that? Yeah. So you're asking randomly call them out of the blue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 100. Don't overthink it. And I know that you have a tendency to like, we're just looking for connection points, brother. Activity. Like, what's that Virgil quote? Fortune favors the bold. Don't get stuck in overthinking the process. What are we trying to do? We're just trying to connect with people and have conversations. Okay.
I like it. Yeah.
Don't overthink. I know you have a tendency to do that, and that's okay. A lot of people do that. I want you to stop that, because that's gonna trip you up. Then you start thinking about like, oh, what if I don't reach them, or what if they think this, or who cares? Action, activity. Pick up the phone, call, smile and dial, kiss babies, right? Like, we want action here, and you want to do it in a way that's genuine and authentic to you, right? But when you ask me a question like, hey, do I just randomly pick up the phone and call somebody? Like, that tells me you're overthinking it. That tells me there's some resistance in the process of doing it, because you're like, well, it almost like you're almost inferring like, there's something weird or wrong about that. And you didn't say that, but like, maybe that's overstated, but I think you're overthinking it. Or
yeah, that makes sense. I was thinking to try to schedule something with everybody, but
simplify. I'm so glad you went there. Simplify, brother. Simplify. Right? Just simple. Just pick up the phone and call. If you can't reach them, follow up with a text message. Hey, tried to reach you. Something important I want to talk to you about with regards to self-storage, or with regards to your, insert something that's a benefit to them. I'm coming across opportunities, right? Like, think of and leverage ChatGPT, and by the way. So this is where I'm not going to allow you to get stuck. Some people would think about like, oh, well, if they don't pick up, like, what would I say in the voicemail, or what would I text them? It's like the best resource is resourcefulness. So if you have no idea what to say, if you're just not sure, you have one of the smartest engines ever created behind you. Jump on ChatGPT, man. Get some guy. Now, obviously, you have me, you have the community, but leverage your resources. Okay, so we went long on this one. So I want to encourage everybody listening. To, my apologies, take the process that I just took Dan through, this action plan, and I want you to establish your daily non-negotiables. And feel free to just piggyback on the ones that Dan is choosing, because those are two really, really good ones, or three really good ones. But if it doesn't work for you, take what works, leave what doesn't. The point is I want you to not be one of those people that fails because they don't plan, right? One thing is having clarity about a goal, but it's got to be followed by action. The storage plan, your daily playbook, is that plan that you commit to follow. So what are your daily non-negotiables? What are your weekly commitments? And if you want to shortcut the learning curve, if you want to get clarity and a daily plan with accountability and support and just being in the right community, I want you to apply for a discovery call, storagewins.com. Apply for a discovery call, or book a discovery call, and we'll have a conversation and see if it's a fit. So with that being said, Dan, appreciate you, man. Continue to stack the small wins to put you in a position to buy your storage facility by November 21st. And I'm going to continue to mention that date, because I want you to hear it. I want you to see it. Everything we're doing is aligned and moving in that direction. Sound good?
November 21st.
All right. Or before. or before.
Or before.
That works too. All right, brother, go get it. Write down your daily non-negotiables. Put it up in a place where you're going to see it every single day before your head hits the pillow. Those are the things you're committed to.
Yep.
All right. All right, brother. I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care.